Hello, everyone, and welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the past perfect tense. So, at the end of today's lesson, you will be able to talk about how something was before something else happened, something that happened that caused a change in the past, and accurately specify the time frame of separate events in the past. All right, let's get started. So, what is the past perfect? The past perfect is a verb tense used to describe an action that was completed before a specific point or other action in the past. It's also used to express the idea that something occurred before another action in the past and helps to lay out a clear sequence of events. The structure for the past perfect is the subject plus had plus the past participle. So pretty much the same structure as the present perfect, except that this time it will always be had. You don't have to change it at all depending on the subject. So this is definitely one of the easiest verb tenses to conjugate. So for example, if we take the verb to give, it would be exactly the same for all subjects. I had given, she had given, they had given, it had given. Okay, all the way through, it's exactly the same every time. All right, the uses of the past perfect. First, we'll use it to talk about an action that was already completed before another action in the past. Second, we'll use it to talk about a past action that had already happened by a certain time in the past. Next, to talk about an action that was interrupted by another past action. And finally, to talk about a past event or situation that lasted for an indefinite amount of time before another event. Indefinite means we don't know exactly the time, but it happened for a certain amount of time. We're just not specific about how long that time was. Okay, here's what you need to know about the past perfect. So, the key for the past perfect is then, right? Back then, in the past, as of then. Remember, in the present perfect, I said the most important thing is now, as of now. Something may have happened in the past, but it's relevant now. But for the past perfect, something happened further in the past, and it was important at that time, okay? So instead of now, we're talking about then, as of then. Something was important at that time. Some key words to look out for are up to then, as of then, right? And at that time, all right? All right, here are a few examples of an action that was already completed before another action in the past. So the first one, I had already arrived before they told me the party was canceled. So here, the timing is important because I went to the party even though it was canceled, but I had already arrived before I found out it was canceled, so I couldn't change my plans. So we see the party was canceled, right? That happened in the past, right? Specific, past simple, and I found out. I found out that it was canceled. That's past simple, specific moment in the past. But I had already arrived before I found out. We don't say when I arrived, right? But I arrived at some point before I found out. That's why I'm there at the building and there's no party there and I feel silly because I had already arrived before I found out, okay? So the timing here is incredibly important and you'll see that in a lot of these situations. So my colleagues took me out for lunch, but I had already eaten a huge breakfast. So sadly, I wasn't hungry. So in this one, I had already eaten the breakfast earlier in the day. So at that point, when they took me out for lunch, past simple, when they took me out for lunch, I wasn't hungry because I had already eaten before that, okay? So at that time, I had done something before that time that was important right then, okay? I wanted to watch a different movie, but my girlfriend had already seen it. Okay, so again, this one is important because I wanted to watch this certain movie at that time, but my girlfriend had already seen it at some point before, right? We're not specific about when she watched it. We're just saying that she had already seen it because it's important at that time because she doesn't want to see it again. She wants to watch something else. Okay, an action that was interrupted by another past action. This is similar to when we talked about in the past continuous. So if you remember in the past continuous, we could use it to talk about a situation that was in progress when something else happened, right? This is very similar, except that it's something that had been in progress when something else happened. Not something that only was in progress at that moment, but had been in progress. So it's a subtle difference, but you're basically putting more emphasis on the fact that it had been going on for a while before that thing happened, okay? So for example, I had been planning to propose, but she broke up with me before I could. Here we're saying that the plan to propose had been going on for a while before she broke up with me, okay? The construction had been progressing smoothly until our general contractor quit, right? So in this one, we're saying that everything was in progress and going well. It had been going well for a while, but then something happened and interrupted it, which was, in this case, the contractor quitting. We had been having such a great year before I lost my job. Again, we had this situation of us having a great year, and then it gets interrupted by a past simple event, which was I lost my job. A past event or situation that lasted for an indefinite amount of time before another event. We had lived together before we got engaged. We're not specifying how long we lived together. You just know it was some indefinite amount of time before we got engaged. I had been living in Barcelona before I moved to Madrid. Again, it's an indefinite amount of time, but it's relevant because you assume that if you had already been living in Barcelona, then it would not be much of an adjustment to move to Madrid. Okay, so we're just giving you this important information that I had been living in Barcelona. It's not really important how long, it's just important that I had been, because now you know it wasn't that big of a move for me to go from Barcelona to Madrid. Our son had been misleading us for who knows how long before we found out that he had flunked out of school. So in this example, they don't even know how long he had been misleading them. So they definitely can't give you an exact amount of time, right? So then they just say this indefinite amount of time for who knows how long, right? By the way, flunked out means fail. It's kind of a casual slang way to say he failed out of school or he had to drop out of school because he didn't make good enough grades. All right, once again, some time expressions that go with the past perfect. So we have when, after, before, as soon as, until, or by the time. Okay, so all of these are kind of these keywords, these clues that we can use to know we're talking about the past perfect. Now, some of these can also, of course, be used with the present perfect, and that's where you have to then look for the keywords of, was there some past simple action that happened and we're talking about a situation before that, okay? So that's where it's going to kind of come in key, is we have to see when we have one of these keywords along with something that was past simple, because now we're talking about something that happened before that or a situation that lasted up until that point in the past. All right, let's just summarize a little bit. Now that we've completed both the present perfect and the past perfect, let's look at these two so we can kind of see the high level differences between them. So with the present perfect, we have something happened in the past, but it's important now, all right? But in the past perfect, something happened in the past, but was important at another time in the past, all right? So with the present perfect tense, we have as of now. With the past perfect, we would have as of then. Present perfect at this time, past perfect at that time, okay? Present perfect, our family has grown significantly. Past perfect, our kids had not been born at that time. Present perfect, we have completed our home remodel. Past perfect, at that time, our house had not been completed. Okay, so by looking at these, and if you compare the two side by side, you can really see this clear difference in the as of now and as of then, right? So something happened in the past and it's important now, present perfect. Something happened in the past and it was important then, past perfect, okay? Even further in the past, right? So it was important at that time. If there's anything I can stress to you in this lesson to make sure this is clear to you, it's that at that time, as of then. All right, let's do a little practice here. I'll go ahead and read through all of these first, and then you can pause the video, answer the questions yourself, and then unpause and come back and I'll give you the correct answers. Now, pay attention here because what I've done is I've mixed the present perfect and the past perfect here to make sure that you can see that distinction between the two, okay? Once you've mastered the present perfect, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to just change have to had. So if I put all of these as the very simple practice that it usually is, that would probably be even a little bit too easy. So I want you to make sure that you're looking at these differences between the present perfect and the past perfect, okay? So let me read through them. Number 1, I blank in 3 different countries. Number 2, before I moved to Canada, I blank never blank outside of the US. Number 3, we blank long hours recently because it's peak season. Number 4, the price of our house blank significantly since we bought it. And number 5, my wife blank the announcement just before I came into the room. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, answer these on your own. If something is not clear, just go back, rewatch any of the parts of the lesson that you need, and then everything should be good to go. So pause the video now and do these, and then unpause, and I'll give you the answers. Okay, by now you should have answered all 5 questions, so let's see how you did. Number 1, because it's the present perfect, I have lived in 3 different countries, okay, up to now. I have lived in 3 different countries. But number 2, before I moved to Canada, I had never lived outside of the US, past perfect. So before that past simple moment, I had never done that, okay? Number 3, we have been working long hours recently because it's peak season, have been up to now, present perfect. Number 4, the price of our house has risen significantly since we bought it. Okay, again, so from that time that we bought it up to now is present perfect. And number 5, my wife had made the announcement just before I came into the room. So I came into the room, that's the past simple moment, and we're saying she had made the announcement before that, okay, before I walked into the room. All right, so if you didn't get the correct tense with these, I would suggest going back and rewatching some parts of the lesson on whichever parts you still don't feel confident on. And then once you feel like you're pretty good with it, go ahead and move on to that guided practice. Now, if the mistakes that you made were about the past participle, that's okay. Don't worry about it too much because you're going to get better at those as you do these exercises. You'll get more practice with those participles. So don't worry so much about that part. But if you're making the mistake with the have or the had, please go back through and rewatch any of the parts that you need. Okay, that's it. We are finished with the past perfect and the present perfect for that matter as well. I hope everything makes sense to you so far, but if it doesn't, please don't be too worried. Even some of my smartest students in the past have had trouble with these perfect tenses. What's going to happen, I think, to a lot of you now is you'll start thinking, you'll be overthinking a bit too much, thinking, is it has, is it had, is it had been, is it this? That's totally normal, right? That's a part of the learning process. That's why we have these guided and these free practice exercises, because remember, you have to give your brain time and structured practice in order to actually process the information. I always say our goal here is not for you to just consume information. It's for you to process and learn the information, okay? This isn't Netflix. I'm trying to get you to learn and to make progress. So go get on that homework, give your brain that practice that it needs. Send me an email if you need any help as always, and I'll be happy to help you. So good luck and see you in the next lesson.